So you actually have all the knowledges and all the resources that you need to figure out this particular problem from your homework. So it's slightly different in terms of the way the mean and the standard deviation of the demand during lead time is actually presented. Okay, so I'm just going to break it down and remind you why it is different. So it says Hard Rock Hotel distributes a mean of 1,000 best towel per day to guests to pool in their rooms. Their demand is normally distributed with a standard deviation of 105 per day. Based on occupancy, the lender firm has the linen contract requires 4-day lead time. So the hotel expects 98% service level to satisfy high guest expectations. So the information provided here, the mean and the standard deviation, is provided in a per day basis, but your lead time is 4 days. I think this is an area where you need a little bit of help. So what is going to be the demand per day, demand standard deviation per day? Obviously, this is 1,000 here. This one is 105 here. So, but what we need in this case is the demand during lead time, which is a 4-day period. 4-day period. Okay, so as our demand standard deviation during lead time. That's another 4-day period. Okay, so that is a difference. You probably have seen it, how to convert from daily demand to lead time, which is longer than 1 day. So the demand during lead time, which is expected value, this is much easier to calculate. You basically multiply it by number of days. That will give you average or expected demand during your lead time. What about standard deviation? In this case, you cannot simply multiply it by number of days. So you need to square root. You are squaring your standard deviation. Remember, when you square your standard deviation, you can get a variance. Okay, so in order to pull together standard deviation, as long as the number of lead time days, you need to first square it, and then you need to multiply it by number of days. So this is the conversion process. You're provided with a standard deviation, you square it to turn it into variance, you multiply the daily variance by the number of days. That will give you the variance during the lead time, and you square root it. That becomes the standard deviation during that lead time. This is a bit, and this is, maybe you may need to take some time to process it. It's basically when you put together variance, you can basically put together, like you put together your average mean demand. But you cannot do that with a standard deviation. That there's need a conversion process. So if you look at your lecture note that I distributed today, that's basically what it is, right? Expected demand during n days. If your lead time is n days and you only know the daily demand, this is the way you get the expected demand. And this is the way you get a standard deviation during your lead time. Okay, so that's why I'm saying you have everything you need. So let's see the anticipated service level. There's nothing fancy in terms of anticipated, the wording itself, rather than remind you this is a target service level. I should say target service level. Okay, it's 98%. So what should be the reorder point? I assume that this reorder point should include your safety stock, right? So like if you're only ordering it as if there is no demand uncertainty, right? If you're assuming that daily demand is constant, your reorder point without considering demand turbulence, this is basically what? It's going to basically 1,000 multiply by 4. But if you do consider the demand turbulence, or demand uncertainty, I should say, yeah, I try to consistent with the terms from a lot of books that talk about inventory. So if you consider the uncertainty, that uncertainty is being absorbed using your safety stock. Okay, so I want to get to this point later, but ROP with safety stock that is aiming for 98% your service level. That's basically ROP that gives service level of certain percentage, right? So you're going to use that. Norm inverse. Probability is 98% your service level. Mean is 4,000. Standard deviation is 210. This is going to be the reorder point with a safety stock included. Okay, so the second question it's asking is, what is a safety stock? So it's sort of asking you whether you can separate your service safety stock from your reorder point. Remember, when the demand is constant, there's no safety stock. So this is going to be your reorder point. If you only order based on reorder point without considering demand uncertainties, then your service level, assuming demand is deterministic, not probabilistic, it's going to be norm dist 4,000. Your average is 4,000. I mean, if there's no turbulence, you're only satisfying the 50% of the demand. Your service level is only 50%. Okay. However, to bump service level from 50 to 98%, additional quantity is actually needed. Okay, I hope this process makes sense to you. I'll visualize it before I finally finish this thing, okay? So if you look at the tools that I, excuse me, I provided in your lecture note, if you go take a look, so it's always a good idea to try to visualize the distribution before you actually engage with it, okay? Just click dismiss. So find probability. So your mean is what? Was 4,000. And standard deviation was 210. We'd like to have, yeah, I think it's this case, 4,000, 210. We'd like to have 98% of your service level. As you can see, this is the big picture, right? You are satisfying 98% of the time. I shouldn't say you're satisfying 98% of the demand. I should say you are satisfying your demand 98% of the time. Sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less. And 98% of the time, you won't feel that you need more. There's no shortage in 98% of the time. Hope that makes sense. I think this is the only thing you'll need to finish the most of your homework assignment. And only thing left from this particular chapter is considering the situation where having more, having less, have different cost structure, and how do you determine the optimum service level. That's the only thing remaining from this particular chapter. Okay, see you.